Hello again, my whiskey drinking friends. This is a first time I bought a bottle of Weller, WL Weller, and I bought the 12-year. I will buy more of theirs. And I just had my first glass, and I'm about to enjoy my second glass with you. This is from Frankfurt, and you guys who really know your whiskey, or your bourbons at least, you can know your whiskey without knowing your bourbons, will know that Frankfurt is the home of Buffalo Trace. And interestingly enough, this is produced evidently, according to some things I was reading, at the Buffalo Trace Distillery. I don't believe it says that anywhere, that it's telling you. And I wish they always told you these things on the bottle, because sometimes when I buy a whiskey, if I knew what distillery it was made at, I wouldn't bother. Buffalo Trace, if you've watched my review of that, you would know that's not one that would be the case on. I would obviously buy a whiskey made by Buffalo Trace, or made by their distillery, because their whiskey's known for its quality. And this is advertised as the original wheated bourbon. I would assume that's your regular Weller. I haven't had that yet. I plan on it. And you most of you know that bourbon is made usually with a mixture of corn and rye. Rye typically will add more of a spicy character. Sometimes I describe it as minty, cinnamon, but it'll have that kind of character. Wheat doesn't add much character to the actual malt, the actual mash, I should say. And a wheated bourbon will take on a lot of the flavor of the bourbon. It'll typically be of the barrel, I should say. Typically smoother, more of a vanilla taste. Maker's is your classic wheated bourbon. I'm sure that this current Weller's has no connection to the guy who was in the 19th century and came up with the idea of a wheated bourbon as opposed to a rye bourbon. But still they're marketing it that way. That is fine. That is more than fine in my opinion. So this is that they've now got 3 lines, and all are fairly, except for the original. I don't see too many reviews of the original around, so I don't know how it's viewed. But both the 12-year-old and their single barrel, are considered very fondly among bourbon drinkers, and so I was looking forward to this. And the palate is quite, not the palate, but the nose is quite nice. Nutmeg, some fruit, a hint of vanilla there, but vanilla's not dominating as you might expect. Overall, very pleasant. Very much one you could that I always find wheated. Again, this may be a connection to eggnog, but wheated are very much a winter kind of bourbons to me. Kind of warm you. And the first taste, very smooth, very sweet. Can't quite place all the flavors, but it's a very pleasant taste. This is 45%. Don't need to add much water to it because it's not at all harsh. Very smooth bourbon. If you like Makers, you're going to like this. If you liked Makers but you've drank too much, I've heard several people. It's interesting, and maybe we can get some comments on this. Who've stated that they liked Makers, but they drank too much of it and they've gotten sick of it. That's never been a problem for me because I've never really gotten obsessed with Makers. You know me. Currently, Makers isn't even in my refrigerator. But I typically drink so many different kinds of whiskeys that I never get sick of any particular type. And so if you liked it, this might be enough of a change that it might kind of get you back to what you originally found interesting without getting whatever you've gotten sick of. In comparison to our rye bourbons include, that I've reviewed, include Woodford Reserve, the Woodford Double Oak, obviously, and our Four Roses, particularly the single barrel. Not as much going on, but smoother. Sweet instead of spicy. There's kind of like a toffee maybe flavor there, but vanilla on the aftertaste. Really nice though. A nice change of pace. I've been drinking mainly scotches, and mainly scotches and rye bourbons recently, and so I haven't had a wheated in a while. But it's a nice change of pace. You get that smooth flavor, that kind of sweetness. Pure barrel. There's a little bit of harshness in there of the wood. So this may be a little harsher than Makers, but that's okay. It's not like a bitter taste, which if you've been around during all my reviews, you would know that typically I don't like harsh. I don't like bitter. I don't see any reason to drink a bitter whiskey. I just love the way it smells, though. Someday, when I have money, I think I'm going to make whiskey-scented perfumes or, air fresheners for the true alcoholic who wants to smell alcohol all the time. Because I just find these things smell so good. Particularly something like this, it's like, sometimes, and that's again an interesting association. Sometimes, you wonder how this compares, at least I do, to the original one. Probably it's a little better. But my guess is, because I've noticed this with aged whiskeys, that the longer you age them, it seems like your palate, the nose, increases faster than the palate. And at times, the palate may not be as good as it gets older, but the nose can really improve. And so this has a really nice perfumey taste, flavor. That's probably better than the taste, although that taste was quite nice. Not complex. This one's pretty affordable. I think it goes for like $22, $25. I think I paid $24 for it, but I've seen it listed at $22. So it's very much in kind of that mid-range bourbon place. And it's a good one at that price. And if you want to add it to your Maker's Mark or your Buffalo Trace at that price, you certainly should. If that's kind of the price range you like to get your bourbons at, if you don't like to go up to that Woodford price. Which is interesting because the bourbon market is getting increasingly dominated, at least on the shelf space, is getting increasingly dominated by bourbons between 35 to 50. And some of them are quite good. I've had Angel's Envy, that was quite good. But I don't know if that's necessarily a good trend. I don't want bourbon to become kind of like Scotch, where you really have to pay if you want a unique and interesting bourbon. I like that I can find good quality bourbons at a reasonable price like this one. And so I would recommend you get this one. I can't say any negatives. Again, if you know you don't like wheated bourbons, by all means avoid. Get a little more barrel here. Kind of an oak now. Really nice though. It kind of sweet and oak is what I'm kind of tasting. 45%. So this is not as, again, for a whiskey of this price, not necessarily typical that you can get things for at that even that proof on this. I'll try more of these and try to review them. Although I don't know, it's like I'm trying to kind of review everything I have and not buy as much, because it's like I say, I've got so much whiskey in my refrigerator, particularly since I'm not drinking as much these days, that I don't know if I'm going to finish it before the next time I move. And if somebody moves me, they're going to think I'm a total alcoholic because of all the whiskey I have. It's which is, it's kind of the opposite. It's like I have so much whiskey because I like to try different things, and then I don't drink it that fast. So I don't know how long it will take me to get the other bottles of Weller. We got more bourbon reviews coming up. Got a couple more on the plate. We've got Johnny Walker Green still on the plate. Haven't forgot my beer lovers. Though, again, we're going to continue to focus more on whiskey because my whiskey reviews get more attention than my beer reviews. And so you give people what they want. And particularly since I've cleaned out all the cheap beer. We're going to try to do I'm going to try to get some Tennessee whiskeys for you guys. Maybe some Canadian. Some point start going on the bottom of the shelf to kind of explore those. We want to answer the question, what is the best cheap whiskey you can get? Don't know. We'll try to figure it out. But until then, this is another good offering from the guys at Sazerac. It's a company that owns Buffalo Trace, and this is another good offering from them. It's just fascinating to me how this is, again, you would never know. I mean, this predates Sazerac. I mean, this existed before it was bought, I believe in the late 90s, by that company. But it's just fascinating to me how with bourbon, they just don't seem to want you to know that it comes from the same places as another one, even if those whiskeys are of good quality. It's not like you're gonna, at least not with me, like I would say, oh, that's made by the people who made Buffalo Trace. I'm not buying that. And even with Jim Beam, if you know bourbon, they make some good bourbon. Oh, speaking of which, we'll also have Knob Creek Rye coming up. That's another one I've gotten. I love my rye whiskeys. Anyway, that's all I got. See ya.